And a lot of parents reached out to me. The failed promise of America's behavioral treatment programs is really about these behavior modification programs for wayward and troubled teens, and the parents who decided to send their kids off to this type of program or several types of programs that catered to this rupturous behavior, whether it be sexual deviance or alcohol dependency or drug abuse and so on and so forth, truancy in school. And a lot of the parents wrote to me after the book was published to say that, okay, great. Thanks for writing about how terrible these programs are, but what do I do?
Exactly.
My son or my daughter is acting this way, and I don't know how to pull them out. And I've tried to tread very carefully because I don't have experience as a parent. I'm a very young parent, and I'm learning things as I go. But my gut instinct is that if a child has gotten so out of hand, a son or a daughter, we could talk specifically about sons if you'd like, but if they've gotten so out of hand that you are seeking this sort of treatment, then the family unit has been broken for many, many years.
Yes.
And my hope for those parents who are struggling in that time is to remember what it was that led those children astray, which was a lack of communication, not trusting in the parent, finding out that they can trust in their friends more than they can trust in the family unit, and then taking off on these divergent paths that led them away from the family, right? So losing that connective tissue then drove these other bad habits, these other influencers into the lives of these boys and girls, and sent them off into a place that, frankly, is hard to come back from.
And I'm thinking of I'm a family coach, and I'm thinking of several clients that I'm working with right now. And I mean, they are in loving homes. There's not, there hasn't been a history in the family of trouble. It's the, nuclear family, two families actually that are like that, with supportive grandparents around them. And still there's this troubled youth in their family. And I mean, it feels like there is definitely a lack of support when things start to go astray. We don't have the community infrastructure to support, either from an educational standpoint, the schools, or to support those families. And, they're just tearing their hair out, throwing up their hands. They feel like there is no option until it gets so bad. They try all the things until it gets so bad. And then is it a wilderness program as the next step? So what are your thoughts on, how do we begin to re-thread this fabric of support around families?
I think the community component is a really important one, and that's an entirely different discussion, but one that certainly needs more attention, more funding, more support from the community, whether it be the principal saying, look, we have this great program that's right down the street, or it's integrated into the school and it won't pull them out of class. So many other options. But as far as the family tissue and the meshing, I mean, I don't know the specific cases of these families, but all of the parents that I've talked to, I interviewed more than 100 former clients of these programs and many of their parents as well. They all believe that they had a supportive, nurturing environment for their children to grow up in. But after the third interview, fourth interview, things start to appear, whether it be narcissistic parenting, whether it be maybe too many boundaries where they're not allowing the child to really branch out and discover themselves. And that really brings me to the point of the Washington Post article you mentioned in the beginning, which was, my father and mother said, you need to follow this path of education, and that's it. You need to sit in the classroom, do the studies, and when you fall behind, it's your fault. And if you can't catch up, it's your fault again. And there's a system in place, and you need to do all that. And then when you're in college, or what do they say? Once you graduate, then you could decide what to do with your life. But if you're in this household, you'll do as you're told. And so it seems nurturing, and it seems like they're providing an essential support and saying, these are the good things you need to do in life to succeed. But they weren't providing me with alternatives. I'm saying, look, I'm very socially anxious. I don't like being in classes. I'm very far behind. I'm not learning through a textbook. I'm not learning through these professors. Please, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was always a combative response. And so I was saying, look, you need to do this. So that, I guess, really ties into the community component, saying there has to be alternative education solutions. There has to be alternative places for these kids to go if they're not fitting into that mold that, again, isn't really applicable to so many people today with all the different developmental needs and emotional needs of our nation's youth.
Yeah. I want to pause, and listeners, think about what he just said, because it is so important. And it's a point that we've made here before, but it's more powerful to hear it coming from you, because you were saying, you're a kid. As a kid, yes, we want to have a good time. We want to have friends, but you also, even though you were just a kid, which I'm afraid we use that too often when we look at our sons and our daughters, what do you know? You're just a kid. Mm-hmm. You knew the system you were working in wasn't working for you. And